This is Live from my office. Thank you for supporting Live from my office by subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts, wherever you're listening right now. Don't forget to leave a comment there in the comments section. Drop me an email if you like. I'll give you that email in just a second. But I'm glad you're here. Got a fine show today. And as we bear down on Election Day, lots of politics to talk about. But let's talk first today about those research ways that you can be an informed voter. Now, I've given you much to work with in the past. Going to give it to you again. We'll go fairly quickly. Each of the websites I mentioned have a .org extension, so everything's .org. If you get confused, just Google them up by the name. All the names are super catchy. All right, so let's start with Vote at Home. Vote at Home is a website which covers every aspect of voting at home. From the safety of voting at home with COVID and how to do your mail-in ballot and what states allow that, absentee voting, it's all there. Vote at Home. It's a good place for you to go. In addition to that, you know I've mentioned Ballotpedia many times. Ballotpedia allows you to download a sample ballot of where you're voting, anywhere in the country. And I've found them to be remarkably accurate. Occasionally they'll miss a ballot initiative or something, but they have information there, and you can take that ballot right into the voting booth with you after you've done your prep. Same thing for Ballot Ready. Ballot Ready, a really good website, does a lot of what Ballotpedia does, maybe a little deeper dive on the candidates. You want to go deep on the candidates, you want to go to Vote Smart. Vote Smart has a Vote Easy quiz. It's kind of... It's not Tinder. It's more Match.com for you and a candidate. The quiz doesn't take you long at all and help you figure out who you may vote for. It really does do a deep dive on all the candidates, from speeches they've made to funding they accept to votes they've made. It's all there at Vote Smart. Now, obviously, your local news, whether it be in the newspaper, and hopefully you still have one, you certainly should have a newspaper website. TV stations have pretty good sites as well, specifically on their website, links and things that go to helping you figure out who to vote for. If you want to go deep on the local stuff, it's remarkably strong at vote411.org. That's vote411. You can check that out as well. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Steve, what about those pesky judges? You can even get a sense of who to vote for in regards to judges, and you don't have to do it just because they have a Irish or Italian-sounding name that, well, you find cute. Your state's bar association is the place to go. For instance, I live in Illinois, so if I go to the Illinois State Bar Association, isba.org, there is a judicial ratings breakdown there. And most of the bar associations do it in a similar way, but simply Google up your state bar association and you'll be able to get ratings on the judges. Man, are you going to be an informed voter. Finally, vote.org and usa.gov are good all-encompassing sites. And if you want to find out who's lying to you, the places I've mentioned before are good, but Fact Check and PolitiFact are very well-established, solid places to check out facts versus alternative facts, or stuff that's just a flat-out lie. I hope that helps. Again, I'm going to run through them, just list them off for you. There's Ballotpedia, Vote Smart, Vote 411, your local state bar association, USA.gov, Vote.org, Fact Check, and PolitiFact. And again, an all-encompassing one to vote at home is Vote at Home, voteathome.org. Email me anytime at thecochrane@gmail.com. Social media at Cochrane Show, except for Instagram, where it's Steve Cochrane Show. You can follow me there. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter so you don't miss the last few days of the Trump dump. 100 days of the crap he's pulled and why he's got to go. I think we're up to date. Let's take a break and come back with Senator Dick Durbin on where we are, where we're going, and whether or not we should move to Canada. Just a quick note, this conversation with Senator Durbin and the talk as well with Mark Doyle were recorded prior to the final debate. So you're aware, and let's roll it now, starting with Senator Durbin. Mark Doyle will join us a bit later on Live from my office. This is Live from my office, presented by Team Hochberg and my friend David Hochberg. We thank you for the partnership and really looking forward to it. Speaking of Hochberg, you know, my sister just refied her house for the second time with Team Hochberg. You guys all know John DeCosse. John DeCosse was having some issues and had some debt issues. He basically was a drifter going from town to town, just stumbling into saloons. But he reached out to Hochberg, and he was able to get him out of debt, enhance his credit, refinance his previous home, helped him secure the financing on a new home, and John has never been happier. And how is he paying it forward? Well, he's mowing David's lawn, but he's also telling people about Team Hochberg. You want to know more, and you should, because I'm telling you, rates are so low now, it's ridiculous. If there was some good news to come out of this crazy year we're in, this is probably near the top of the list. He's got a passion for helping listeners. He helped me with our loan when we finished off this house that I'm currently broadcasting from. I don't know if you heard, I'm live from my office. He did my daughter's loan on her first house as well. Point being, I trust him, and that's why I recommend David Hochberg and Team Hochberg. Here's what you do. You pick up the phone. You call 855-56-DAVID. Website is easy to remember, too. It's 56david.com. Refinance to pay off your debt. Reverse mortgage information right there as well. Help you purchase a new home. I trust him. He's David Hochberg. It's Team Hochberg. There's nobody better when it comes to your home. It is a pleasure to welcome Senator Durbin to Live from My Office. I think we talked on the radio about 10,000 times. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Steve. It's great to hear your voice.
The pandemic is number one on everybody's mind. What can the Senate do still at this point to move the ball?
Steve, we have to put it in perspective. We have failed, utterly failed in the United States to deal with this. And you say, oh, that's just a partisan complaint. Yeah. Listen, we have 4.5% of the world's population. We have 20% of the COVID-19 deaths in the world. We have 5 times the infection rate in America as they do in Germany per capita. And we have 2.5 times the death rate in America compared to Canada. What does Canada know that the United States doesn't know? They know that they need a leader that brings the nation together and says we're going to have a common purpose to defeat this. What do we have? We have a man who vaults out of a helicopter, having been in the hospital with COVID-19, runs up to a balcony scene, rips off his mask as if he's Mr. Superman, and says to the world, don't worry about it. I'm getting tired of it. Let's move on. We have too many people who have died and too many who are sick now to ignore the reality.
Yeah, that Evita moment was as offensive as it gets for anybody, whether you lost somebody to this or not, and it's just downright frightening. So I've seen statistics as recently as this morning that there's a 75% shot that Democrats end up controlling the Senate. So, things are about to change. But what we need to tell everybody is you got to vote.
True. And the good news is there's a lot of early voting. 4 years ago in Illinois, there were 400,000 paper ballots cast. This year, 2 million have been requested. We think that there'll be more, and the longer people wait, the more concerned I am. They should ask for these ballots early and mail them back as fast as they can. But in terms of the volume of paper ballots, it's an indication this could be a record turnout.
Yeah, and Congress, can't go and correct me if I'm wrong, can't go and tell these private companies that are trying to create this vaccine or the number of vaccines, speed it up, slow it down, whatever the case may be. So what's the role? It must be frustrating to just wait for this to happen.
It is frustrating. And just to give you an example, the University of Illinois has developed a saliva test that is a fraction of the cost of the nasal test, and the results are ready in 2 to 6 hours. They are now using it across their campus. The students carry a phone with an app on it. If they are registered negative as a result of the test, they get a green mark on their phone. They can walk into any building they wish, and it turns out that it's working. But it's being tested by the FDA. I'm anxious. What a change this would be. What a breakthrough. But I don't want to call the FDA and say, come on. I mean, this is not – politicians step aside at this point. Right. Leave it to professional medical experts to decide whether the test is valid and whether or not it should move forward. If it can, it's a breakthrough. Same thing with the vaccine. The more the politicians talk about it, the less credible the results will be. Well Leave said. It to the professionals.
The flurry of BS that's come up against the CDC and the World Health Organization as well just muddies the water as well for people. Do you have a lack of confidence in either organization?
I don't, and I think we made a serious mistake pulling out of the World Health Organization. If the rest of the world believes, I think we should as well, that looking at this together, trying to solve it together, responding together is the best way to approach it. But we know that the president just went off and said, that's it, we're out of the WHO, we give them too much money and they don't appreciate us, we're leaving. We got to look beyond that rhetoric to the reality. Same thing true with these health organizations in our government. 2 days ago, the president called them idiots. That's the word he used. He said idiots, and he put Anthony Fauci, who I've known for 20 years, in that category. And I'm thinking, if this president is rejecting the public health experts in America's government, then we are in trouble, because who do you turn to after them? You turn to quackery, I'm afraid. Let's inject some disinfectant, and let's say it's a hoax, on and on. That has really hurt the United States in responding.
You ever had an opportunity in the last 4 years to sit in the Senate office and go, I don't know where we live. I don't know what's happening. I don't know how it's gotten this crazy, because, I'm 59 years old, and I certainly feel that way.
I certainly have. And I think what's happened is things have been unleashed in America, which may have been there, but they were basically cloaked and not public and not really considered acceptable mainstream. With the internet and with certain political leadership, those folks have been given a permission slip. We are seeing activities, for example, in the white supremacist, white nationalist movement at a volume we've never seen before. Sure, they've been there, but now they team up in the internet and head off to carry their guns around and get involved in things that are just downright dangerous. So I'm afraid that the internet, together with that political force, has really created a much different country than we saw 4 years ago.
Are you worried about what happens after November 3rd and before January 21st, or whatever the inauguration day is?
January 20th, and I'm very concerned. This is the first time in the history of our country, the very first time, when a president of the United States has said, I may not accept the result of the election. It's never happened before. And that should have been the subject of condemnation by everyone. Only two Republicans that I know stood up and said, this is objectionable and horrible. Mitt Romney of Utah and the Republican governor of Massachusetts. It should have been universal. If there's anything about a democracy that we need to count on, it's the fact that elections count. Sure, we want an accurate count, and there are election contests. I get that. But at the end of the day, if the American people make a decision, we have to stand behind it.
The concerns that people have over the pandemic also are concerning when it comes to what happens to Obamacare. It ties in, obviously, to the Supreme Court discussion. And by the way, kudos to you for what you said in the Amy Coney Barrett hearing when you talked about your own frustration about, well, what are we doing here? Do these hearings matter anymore? Because she didn't answer questions, right?
She didn't, and it isn't as if that's always been the case. I went back and looked at the testimony of John Roberts and others, and they were careful. Anything pending before the court, they wouldn't touch, and they tried not to step into a politically hot area. I can understand that. That's sensible. But they would answer basic questions about basic things. Example, during the course of it, John Kennedy, who is a Republican senator from Louisiana, says to Amy Coney Barrett, you've been asked about climate change. What do you think about climate change? She says, well, I really haven't thought about it. And I said, well, what are your views on it? What's behind it? Well, I haven't given any thought to that. Now, is that credible that a 48-year-old lawyer who was dean of the law school, raising children, and is well-informed and very bright, doesn't have an opinion as to climate change and whether it truly exists and how it is caused? I don't believe that. I believe she does have it, and she was so fearful of saying anything that might be controversial, she said very little, and so we have less to work with than we need.
The votes aren't there, obviously, and if the Republicans push this through, it will happen. There's all this talk about Biden and court packing and all of that. Aren't we getting the cart ahead of the horse there? Because the one thing that I know about Vice President Biden, if he wins, is he's a good man who will take a measured approach and cross that bridge when he comes to it.
I served with Joe Biden in the Senate for 16 years, maybe. I think that was it, 16 or so, and was on the Senate Judiciary Committee with him. I know him on a personal basis. I certainly know him politically. And I think I can take a measure of the man better than some. And I will tell you first and foremost, and this sounds like a hyperbole, he's the most caring and compassionate person I've ever met in public life. He is the kind of person that when he hears about somebody having a problem, asks for a telephone number and gets on the phone for half an hour talking to a complete stranger. He's just that kind of person. And when you think about the divisions in America, don't we need that kind of temperament? If we're going to ever bind the wounds, and we'll never draw everybody together, that's not what America looks like. But anyone who is in the center stripe of American politics and wonders if people really give a darn about them. I mean, I think Joe Biden can reach out to those people and bring them into a common conversation, which is what America needs.
Isn't it refreshing to hear somebody say, I'm your president if you're with me or against me? I'm the president for everybody. Because that's the thing that's been missing so badly. You're not the president of the Republicans or the president of the people that like Donald Trump. You're the president of the United States.
That's exactly right, and we've got to get back to that. There were moments in history, and I always think of President Lincoln's second inaugural address. The Civil War had not ended. The deaths were in the hundreds of thousands, and it was still going on and raging. And he got up before the American people when he took his oath of office and said, with malice toward none, with charity for all, and then talked about binding the wounds of the nation. And it was a magnanimous, thoughtful gesture, realizing that only in unity can this country move forward effectively. We need that spirit now more than ever.
What's the future of Obamacare as it stands? Obviously, no program is perfect. I certainly don't like the premiums that I had paid previously, but as somebody that now is paying a ridiculous amount of money for what amounts to private insurance, and so many others have the same issue, with employers in trouble, with the economy hurting, we need Obamacare. And the vast majority of the country wants Obamacare. Is this going to live and survive?
I don't know the answer. I will tell you on November the 10th, the Supreme Court is going to hear oral arguments on eliminating Obamacare. And what that means is not just eliminating the insurance exchanges, which 23 million of us, all members of Congress, let me add, are under the Obamacare insurance exchange. It just doesn't mean eliminating 23 million. It means eliminating protections built into all of our health insurance policies because of this. It's because of the Affordable Care Act that no health insurance policy can discriminate and make women pay more than men, can discriminate based on pre-existing conditions, can put lifetime limits on your recovery, have to write a policy that includes mental health counseling as well as addiction treatment. Think about that, having gone through and going through this opiate situation. And it says that the parents can keep their kids on their health insurance until kids reach the age of 26. I mean, those are things built into the law that are really before the court now. The Supreme Court, with one decision, can eliminate everything I've just said, and we'll have to start over in trying to decide how America is going to provide health insurance.
How worried are you?
Very. I mean, I look particularly at the new Supreme Court nominee. She says I've made no promises, and that's where I stand. But unfortunately, she's been nominated by a president who does not suffer an unuttered word, and has, at the rate of 25 tweets a day, told us exactly why he chose her, to eliminate the Affordable Care Act and to be on the court if he has an election contest. He's the man who said that. I didn't make that up. And, that bothers me. If it's a 6-3 court to eliminate the Affordable Care Act, it doesn't have a chance.
You mentioned Lincoln at the start of the Republican Party and the evolution of the Republican Party to whatever this is today, because you have said before, and I've said it a million times, this country needs at least two healthy political parties. It's important to have the discussions on different sides. This is not the Republican Party. When has the Senate lost its soul and its spine, and how do you get it back?
Well, we've got to get back to being a Senate. In the year 2019, the calendar year, we had 22 amendments in the entire year. 22 amendments on the floor of the Senate. It used to be the world's most deliberative body. Now we're absent without leave. We stick around for judicial appointments, and that's it. We do one bill a year, and sometimes no amendments on it. And that's what this leadership, Senator McConnell, has brought us to over the last 6 years. This has to change. And I will tell you privately, Republican senators come to me and say, we're fed up with this too. Why did we run for this if we're not going to try to tackle the issues? We just talked about the Affordable Care Act. Listen, I voted for it 10 years ago, would do it again tomorrow. I'm the first in line to say, take a look at it. There are parts of this that haven't worked very well.
Sure.
We can do better, but we can't even open the door to discuss it under the current circumstances. So we've got work to do, and I hope in the near future the Senate becomes a viable part of governing this nation.
We've only got a few minutes left, and I appreciate your time of being on Live from my office. But before we do run out of time, there was a very emotional speech that John McCain gave after he was diagnosed on the floor of the Senate, talking about getting back to, is the term proper order in the Senate? Because I almost feel like this is something that it's a mantle that maybe you have taken on to try to get that reestablished.
It's called regular order, and it really is kind of a generic term, Steve, to what the Senate could be. I mean, I say to senators who've been here about 6 years, you've never seen the Senate. There was a time when I was first elected where I could literally walk on the floor of the Senate and say, well, what are we debating? And they'd say, well, we're in the middle of the debate on and considering amendments on so-and-so. And I said, well, what's pending? And they tell me, and I look at the amendment and think, well, I want to challenge this. So let me write out an amendment, second-degree amendment to this, and get a vote on it. And I did in a matter of hours. I lost, but I did what senators are supposed to do.
Right.
You know, consider the legislation, make your proposal, take it or leave it to the Senate. But that is gone, and we've got to return to it. When we get to that part of being constructive and bipartisan, I think we're going to serve the purposes of this nation. I remember it. I want to return to it.
And my last thought for you, or my last question for you at this point, I hope we can do this again sometime soon. But Mitch McConnell, we've talked about him publicly, privately. You've spoken very directly about him. And, senators have been very good about dealing in general in the past with your disputes. And I'm sure it's probably some ugly conversations behind closed doors. Mitch McConnell seems to revel in the evil and the damage that he's caused. As long as you've known him, did you ever see this dark a turn?
No. And I didn't ever think it would reach this point. You see, he prides himself on being a creature of the Senate, starting off as an intern and staffer and working his way up. We used to talk about this, how, when I was in college, I interned for a senator here in Washington, and we talked about those days and what it was like and the giants of the Senate and so forth. And then I watched when he came in and decided to take the filibuster and just beat us senseless with it. We couldn't do anything. We couldn't move. Everything needed 60 votes, and nothing could get 60 votes, except in the rarest circumstance, and that's the Senate that we live with today. And now this filling of judicial vacancies has created an imbalance in the court that frankly is not healthy for this nation. We shouldn't have an all-conservative court or an all-liberal court. It ought to be a court where there are some folks in the middle who are looking for moderate responses that lean to the right one day and to the left the next. But he has been determined to fill every vacancy, hundreds of vacancies on the federal judiciary with lifetime appointments, and that has created an imbalance. So we need a new Senate. The voters have it in their hands or in their power on November 3rd to decide whether they want it as well.
Any chance we would eventually get to term limits in the Supreme Court as well?
Well, there's been a lot of conversation about it, but it's not new. It's been going on for years, and we've kind of stuck with the current model. I don't know. People suggest that there's this big conspiracy to pad the court. That's not going on. I've missed the roll call at those meetings, I can tell you.
Right, yeah.
They're not taking place.
Calls, yeah.
Yeah, there is speculation, but it's just that. And I think the election will decide where we're going to go in terms of the future of the court. People do want balance on the court, and I think they're right. Not just all Democrats or all Republicans, but something in between.
Somewhere between 30 and 40 million people have already early voted. We're approaching half of the population that voted last time. So I'm heartened by that, Senator, and I wish you nothing but good luck and good health in the days ahead, because we need you, and we need you to give it to both sides.
Well, tell your listeners, vote. People have died and shed blood for their right to do it. They should never take it for granted.
Yeah, God bless America, and thank you for the time, sir.
Thanks, Steve.
It is always a great deal of thanks that we owe to David Hochberg and Team Hochberg for being the primary sponsors, the presenting sponsors of Live from My Office. Mr. Hochberg joins me now. Hello, David.
Hey, Steve, how are you?
I'm doing fine, and I understand you're busier than ever.
Yeah, it's rates are still at record lows, and
it's bananas.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, it really is bananas. We just quoted 75-year-old couple in Indiana. We did a cash-out refinance, cleaned up all their debt, paid off like 40, 50 grand worth of debt 6-7 months ago, and they're at the point where you're able to refinance them again. You have to wait 180 days before you can refinance them. Their credit scores are up 80 points, and we're going to save them another, I think, $250 a month. They elected to roll their costs in, and we got them a rate of like 3%. So on a 30, it's insane.
That's bananas.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's great. It's great. It's great that all the listeners are able to take advantage of these low rates, because the two quickest ways to get money back in the economy, Steve, number one, federal government dropping money right into your checking account. There's none faster than that. And number two, lowering interest rates and allowing homeowners and property owners to drop their interest rates down, because that's a long-term effect, right? That's every month. So, yeah, hopefully all this money that everybody's saving and all the debt everybody's paying off will get back into the economy, where get the economy going again and get some people back to work.
Hi, David Hochberg. Great talking to you as always. And again, it's Team Hochberg, and it's 855-56-DAVID or 56david.com, the title sponsor of this Live from My Office. This is Live from My Office. We continue with my very good friend Mark Doyle, who is one of my heroes. Do you know why you're one of my heroes?
I do not, but I'm honored.
Well, we've been friends a long time. You're my hero for all reasons, but also because not just all the things you do from a philanthropy standpoint, and we will get to those, but all the work you're doing to try to make sure that Donald Trump is no longer president. Here, I'm going to give you the rarely earned sitting ovation.
Wow, I'll take it. I need a moment.
Tell everybody what the organization is that you're helping, lead the way to make sure there's enough money to promote the fact that Vice President Biden should be the next president.
I'm the chairman of Unite the Country, which is a super PAC specifically devoted to helping Biden get elected. We were formed early on after he announced, kept a low profile, but always thought that before he became the nominee that he would need some help telling his story and touching voters. And so we formed this super PAC and off we went. And I believe we've made quite a difference early on. At this point, he has all the money that he needs. But in the beginning, when he had 14 candidates in the race, he was struggling, as everybody knows, after the first two contests. This guy was on life support.
I want to get to who he is as a man because you know him well, but I believe the total dollar amount that you guys have raised is a bazillion gajillion. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it's still not easy to raise a bazillion gajillion dollars. But in the meantime, there are people that were traditionally Republican donors who are stepping up to do this as well, even if it's quietly, right?
Yes, we're seeing, I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but with various political PACs, there are PACs that are just traditional, what they call a super PAC, where you have unlimited amounts of money that you can raise to support specifically a candidate. And then there is a classification called a C4, a 501c4, where the donors don't have to be revealed. They're called dark money PACs. I'm not particularly enamored of them, but what we have seen, and we know, is that millions, if not tens of millions of dollars have been raised, various C4s supporting Joe Biden from Republicans who want to see this guy go as quickly as possible, but just don't want a target on their back while he's still in office. So I think the number that I heard for this election writ large is $11 billion is going to be spent.
Holy cow.
That's just ridiculous. But you are certainly seeing Republicans, and by the way, we're seeing Republicans give to our super PAC, and their names are being disclosed. And so there are two classifications. The Republicans, 50% who want this guy out, just don't want him to know yet. And then there's a percentage of that population who says, I just don't care. He's just horrible for this country. We need him to go.
Yeah, and we should not be in a situation in this country where you have to spend $11 billion on any election. Mm-hmm. Having said that, I'd spend $11 billion plus one or two if it guarantees me Donald Trump is no longer president, because as Michael Steele, the former RNC director and MSNBC, NBC News commentator, said the other day, it's not about party, it's about country. And we're hearing that more and more as Republicans stand up, whether it's the Lincoln Project, and say, no, he does not represent me. He certainly doesn't represent what we used to call the Republican Party. He's got to go.
There's no standard by which, literally no standard by which you could judge his presidency as being good for the country or good for the world. And certainly it sounds like a Democratic talking point when you say he inherited a great economy. But as Patrick Moynihan once said, you're entitled to your own opinion. You are not entitled to your own facts. And the longest sustained recovery started during the Obama years. That is just a fact. And the fact is it's not in dispute. When Obama and Biden took over, 750,000 jobs a month were being shed. And over 8 years, they put the economy back together, and he inherited a great economy. And by the way, pre-COVID, he had already added $2 trillion in deficits. $2 trillion in deficits with the tax cut. That didn't actually help middle-class Americans. It just did not. Again, those are the facts. The top 0.1% got about 80% of the tax benefits.
And the $2 trillion in deficit will be paid for by my grandchildren and your grandchildren and their grandchildren.
All right, but to remind listeners that we want to go to Mr. Peabody's Wayback Machine. When Bill Clinton left office, we had I was there, a projected 10-year surplus. Because he did the things that you need to do. I think Biden is part of his tax plan and his overall plan to realign ourselves with trade partnerships that help us export jobs and technology, raise corporate tax a little bit so corporations just pay their fair share, and billionaires usually don't actually pay even at the level that you and I pay, and put some money back into the Treasury, put an infrastructure plan together that puts people back to work, because when people go to work, they pay taxes. That goes into the U.S. Treasury, and do the structural things that you need to reset the economy, in addition to all the bridges that need to be repaired around the world with our allies.
The bridges that need to be repaired and all the other fix-up work that Biden-Harris will have to take on after November 3rd is just immense. Is there going to be enough time to do the regular work to do the things this country needs, along with fixing all of what Trump destroyed?
Short answer is, truly, is there ever enough time when you work at the White House, having been there? No. But one thing we know about Biden, and you hear it from people who worked with him in the Obama administration. I heard him say it the times I worked for him. Every discussion they would have in the White House, when they were talking about a proposal, an economic proposal, he would say, how does this help middle-class people? Does this help regular, everyday working class? And it was just a mantra. So he is singularly focused on doing three things as I see it. One is putting a national pandemic response plan back together, using the Defense Production Act to really use the Defense Production Act, and to make sure that there are national testing standards, that there are tests available, that the vaccines, if they do come, have been tested and they're ready, and we have enough of them. But PPE, swabs, all the things that states are clamoring for now, he will reestablish the pandemic task force. That's job one. Is put together the infrastructure back at the White House, whose sole job is to make sure that we have a nationalized pandemic response like every other, advanced country in the world. That's one. The second thing, and we may have some trouble with the Supreme Court, who will try to overturn the Affordable Care Act, is to make the modifications to the existing act to strengthen it. What we're seeing for third year in a row now is that healthcare costs are declining. 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4. They're starting to go down, which they thought they would. They came out of the box a little bit higher than people wanted. But we're starting to see healthcare costs start to subside because insurers are figuring out how to price the market. And so they have to seize on that, add to the pool if they can, and try and shore up the Affordable Care Act because you got 20 million people who depend on it. And then the third thing I think he's going to be laser focused on is an infrastructure, a real infrastructure development bill. And that'll be a combination of small tax increases on corporations and the wealthiest, the use of which will be to pour back into the Treasury to put a stimulus plan together that starts to rebuild roads, rebuild bridges, rebuild ports. Those are all great, high-paying jobs that put America back to work and rebuild our infrastructure.
Well,
So
and it's an extension of, right? It's an extension of the CCCs. My father was 14 or 15 years old when he left school, got on a bus, ended up in Seattle, Washington, building roads. This is during the Depression, and the Civilian Conservation Corps created millions of jobs. That's what we're talking about, isn't it?
It is exactly what we're talking about. And you just have to have a mindset. It's been a running joke, and not a joke in a good way, by the way, for the last 4 years. It's Infrastructure Week, right? Everybody's been saying it's Infrastructure Week. Right. But it's been next year, we're 19 years since 9/11. Do you know that as we sit here today, only 5% of ports around the country can X-ray cargo?
How is that even possible?
They just keep moving. And again, I don't want to always make it a partisan debate about Republicans versus Democrats, but I will say factually again that one of the things that animates Republican administrations are tax cuts. And what we have seen traditionally is generally tax cuts have a very short-term effect. They don't create the millions of jobs that they are purported to. You certainly didn't see it this time, even pre-COVID. That tax cut did not actually resulted in the loss, by the way, of manufacturing jobs and trade policies that were surrounding it. Manufacturing jobs and exports were at like a 10-year low. So tax cuts don't have the intended effect other than to drain resources out of the Treasury, which you need to rebuild infrastructure. So he will be focused on this, and I believe those three things will be the three legs of the stool. And in addition, by the way, to staffing government, there are 390 what they call Senate confirmation positions in the federal government. That's secretaries, assistant secretaries, deputy assistant secretaries across all the agencies, Treasury, Commerce, HUD, HHS.
But these are big management positions, so people understand these 390 positions, which is why they need Senate confirmation, right?
Right, because you're over like HHS budget. Health and Human Services used to be the largest budget in the federal government before there was Homeland Security when they combined the agencies. So it's a multi-billion-dollar budget. Of the 390 Senate confirmation positions, 90 are filled.
90.
Yeah, 300 of them they haven't even bothered to fill. The State Department, they've cleared out the State Department. When the North Koreans 2 years ago were talking about launching that short-range ballistic missile, there's nobody on the Asian desk at the State Department to talk to.
It's a bad movie. And this is what people need to understand. Look, the differences between the incomparable Donald Trump, and I don't say that as a compliment, and Joe Biden is, one has been said again and again, and you know this, is a good man. The other is inexplicably evil and incompetent. And, people have, I've known this guy from afar, whether it be interviews or the occasional personal crossing paths, talking about Donald Trump here, since he came around in the 80s. What we've come to find out is the truth that anybody that knew him well already knew, and that is that he starts every day this way. He wakes up in the morning and he thinks, what can I do for Donald Trump today? That's it. There's no plan. There's no agenda. There's no strategy about what will work for America. He only acts, and I defy anyone to find a single thing that he's done in the last 4 years. He only acts on things that are good for Donald Trump. The worst possible case scenario for anybody that would be president of the United States. He never took on the weight of the office. He never got it. His 44 predecessors, some really bad people, by the way, but his 44 predecessors never had the negative impact that he has had. He has done so much damage in such a short period of time, and people need to wrap their head around the fact that not only does he not like the people who he seeks as his base, he doesn't care about them or care about anybody else, and that's not an exaggeration.
John Kelly, the 4-star Marine Corps Chief of Staff, called him the most flawed individual he has ever met. He was silent for a year. John Kelly left because, like Mattis before him, he just had enough. He could not watch this man singularly disassemble our federal government, step all over the Constitution, and just ruin put his thumb in the eye of all of our allies and do the work. Again, this sounds like, MSN talking points, but for your listeners, you have to understand that Putin's animating purpose in life is to break up NATO. Because of NATO, there hasn't been a war on the European continent since World War II. That's what NATO was formed for. Putin wants to disassemble because they're on the move, because they want to continue to expand. So when Donald Trump disassociates himself from our allies, puts his thumb in the eye of the Germans, the French, the Brits, it gives an opening for Putin to do what he has wanted to do. So we have to understand the people around this president say things that nobody who's ever worked for a president has said before. No chief of staff has ever left the White House and said, I work for the man who is the most flawed individual I have ever met.
Right.
You don't have to take our word for it, Stephen Marr. Take the word of people who you respect, who wore the uniform. John Kelly's son was killed in Afghanistan. They stood over his grave with the president, and he said, I don't get it. What's in it for them?
Yeah, 100%. Suckers and losers.
Suckers and his children. Remind everybody who's listening. The Trump children have been banned for life from ever serving on the board of a nonprofit in the state of New York for malfeasance with the Trump organization.org.
Yeah, if you wonder what kind of person Donald Trump is, David Fahrenthold from the Washington Post has won awards for his terrific reporting and writing, and he did a charity piece on Trump. Charity meaning the charitable foundation that Trump had back at the beginning of the Trump administration, might even have been during the campaign. And he told a story about a pediatric cancer foundation in New York City that was holding a fundraiser, the type of fundraisers that go on every night in New York and Chicago and every big city. But in this case, there were kids with cancer in attendance. There were the parents of the kids with cancer. And there was a dais that was filled with people who could speak to it, doctors, family members, and also donors, people who had spent a lot of money on this. One donor was a little late in arriving. Donald Trump was in the room, and nobody really knew why. And he went up and he took that donor's chair and took his name placard and placed it down. So the guy walks into the room, and he's sitting out in the crowd and doesn't quite know why, doesn't see his name up there. Trump makes a break for it shortly after the thing starts, but in the process takes a picture with a bunch of very sick children, some of which will die, and left without donating a dime. He simply wanted the page 6 story to be about him the next day. I don't know that you need to know anything else about Donald Trump other than that story, that he exploited kids with cancer. And it's just the tip of the iceberg.
And let me remind everybody as well that remember this number, and this is only as of today. Remember this number, 9. 9 is the amount of people who have worked for Donald Trump and the administration in the last 3 years who have been indicted and or convicted. 9 people. Flynn, Bannon, Stone, the list goes on. 9 people who worked for him in 3 years.
Sure.
That's a record.
Yeah, it's the type of record where Nixon is spinning in his grave going, wow, this guy's dirty. It's just, we could go on and on, but here's what I want to talk to you about. Joe Biden, you knew him as a senator. You knew him as the vice president. You've worked for him on multiple occasions. And I'll speak for you because you never bring this up, but you were a close friend of the family. You know the man. Talk about why his friends and people that know him well call him a good man. And the things he does that we don't even know about, the phone calls that he makes, things of that nature. Who is he?
Joe Biden is you could describe him as, he's the guy that you want to live next door to. He is the best neighbor that you've ever had in your life. Cindy McCain, who has endorsed him, said a couple of months ago that what people didn't know about Biden is the last 6 months of John's life, Biden was going out there unannounced with no fanfare and sitting with John once every couple of weeks. That was his friend. John's a Republican. Obviously, people who know that Biden that John worked for Biden when he was a young senator. He was his legal attaché, so they'd been lifelong friends. But when he was dying, Joe Biden was silently and just anonymously, without anyone knowing, just going out to sit with him. Lindsey Graham, before he went off the rails 2 years ago, was giving an interview where he started to tear up and said, if you can't like Joe Biden, you've got a problem as a human being. These are Republicans. Biden, I sat on trains with him going back and forth from Wilmington down to D.C. when I worked for him, and 2 specific occasions, although there were many more. They all knew, the conductors all knew him. And one was a man, one was a woman who'd come up to him and say, can I talk to the senator? Of course. Senator, my son, both times they were sons, is deployed somewhere overseas. They can't tell me where he is. I'm just worried. Is there any way you could get this letter to him? Give me the letter. A month later, both times, it was about a month, maybe a little bit more, we'd see the same conductor. They'd come up and say, thank you so much. I got a call or I got a text from my son. I just want to say thank you. He didn't make a big deal out of it. He took the letter. He went back to the White House, back to the Senate at that point, and called the DOD, found out, find this kid, get this letter to him. That's just who he is. The amount of people that he would call, the amount of young kids who have stutters that he's met on the campaign trail, and he gives them his number and said, if you're struggling, you call me whenever. If you are struggling, you call me whenever, and I'll talk you through it. And sure enough, there's probably 10 or 15 kids around the country who now have Joe Biden's personal cell phone. And you saw one at the convention. Just a kid that he met who was struggling. He said, see me after this event. That's who Joe Biden.
Yeah, and taking the time when I don't even know how people could even understand the amount of time that as a public official that you have versus the things you'd like to get done. The fact that he sees that sort of pain or grief or concern in people's eyes, that's where that empathy thing comes from, the thing that Trump is completely devoid of. But the other thing that I don't know that we've discussed much is for a guy that lost his first wife and his daughter, and much more recently his son, who served with distinction overseas and then got into politics himself, talking about Beau Biden, lost them all tragically. One, a car accident in the first 2 cases and cancer. How has he continued to maintain a positive attitude?
He's talked about it, and it's something I've witnessed. He finds a way. It's incredible, really. He finds a way to always make his life about something other than his own grief. And that sounds like a very Pollyannish, staid, rehearsed remark. But he would get up and go to work or go out and campaign or drive through the district. And in his view, and you've heard him say it, and I've seen him do it, there's always somebody who's got it worse than he does. There's people, I'm so lucky that I have health care. I'm so lucky I have a good job. I'm so lucky I still have Jilly. He would get up, and still does, and he finds a way about making his life about something other than his own story and his own grief. It's a cautionary tale for people out there, especially in these days, as hard as things are. If we want to get a little bit pathetic here, find a way to make your life about something other than your own grief.
Well,
and it will bring you solace.
And isn't that such a stark difference between these two? One spends his day on Twitter talking about how aggrieved he is and how everybody's out to get him and nothing is fair. And the other does what Joe Biden does. I mean, the choice is just beyond obvious.
Yeah, just gets up every day and tries to make somebody else's life better. Do you know that in the last 3 years, the Trump organization, although all of his properties are hemorrhaging cash, the Trump organization apparently has increased their wealth like over $1 billion.
It's just, you got to laugh because it's so ridiculous.
Yeah. Ivanka Trump, just her take from the Trump Hotel in D.C., just her own take, not the brothers, from last year alone was $3.5 million that she made off the Trump Hotel.
Yeah, these are not children; these are adult criminals, and they are, engaging in what the Trump family does and what they learned from Daddy, and that is, it wasn't me, it's you.
There's $300 million unaccounted for from the campaign. It's just started. You'll see it before the end of either before the campaign or after the election's over.
The inaugural? Are we talking about the inaugural money or more than that?
No, out of the Trump campaign account. They've blown through almost $1 billion, but 300 million of it has been going into these accounts that we'll find out they're working their way back into Trump. 300 million is essentially missing, unaccounted for.
There's a confirmed story by people who were in the room that the night of the election in 2016, all of the people on Team Trump that you knew at that time, 90% of which are gone, 99% are gone, but all of them were just wondering, well, what's going to be next? I've got this possibility. I've got that possibility. Fox News will hire me for this. I'll set up this or that. It was all about making money. That was the whole point of Trump getting in. He wanted a better deal with The Apprentice. They were about to pull him off the air. The whole thing was about publicity. Donald Trump is an absolute accident of history. And the only way to fix the accident is to clean it up. And that's Biden and Harris. I want to ask you about the thing that keeps coming up before we get to the philanthropy part, which, I'm very proud of you as my friend that you continue to spend all your time and the $4 you have left on. But there's constant discussion on the side of Trump of Sleepy Joe, and he's not up to this, and he's delusional, and all of those things. Is that the guy you know?
No, it's classic Trump. The one thing he's very good at, when you're Donald Trump, you have one trick pony. You have one play in the playbook. It is just demean people, name call, muddy the waters, make it about anything other than the facts. And I will tell you that it's been a long time since there's been anybody being a president, regardless of what his age is, who understands more about how government works, about how to make sure that government is operational, who has more knowledge about world events and how to put a strong national defense strategy back together. Just make no mistake about it. This guy has not lost. Is it true? Has he lost a little bit of his fastball? We all have. By the time you get over 50, 55, 60, it's a little bit off your fastball. But what he might lose on the fastball, he's got a hanging curve and knuckleball. He's got other pitches that Biden can throw. And he works out 3 times a week. He is rock solid in shape, smart as hell, understands how government works. There is no comparison to a sitting president who's on the medications that we know of. He's on Adderall, they think. He is certainly on blood thinners, cholesterol medication. He is medically morbidly obese, and we're worried about whether or not Biden is up for the job. Come on.
Well, once again, it's not me, it's him. It's not me, It's you. That's right. That's the Trump playbook as well. As we go forward, the grim nature of what this pandemic has done is amplified in all sorts of ways, including the fact that people are despondent and they don't know what to do next. And we need optimism, we need hope, and that's what Biden-Harris can provide, but they can't do it all. One of the things that you have committed your life to at this point, you and your lovely wife, are helping military veterans who have come home and don't have jobs and need help to get back on their feet. And then more recently, helping in the field of drugs and research to help men and women dealing with PTSD, because we have this scourge of military suicide. So talk a little bit about those causes.
Well, Rags of Honor, thankfully to you, has been such a dear friend to me for so many years. Rags of Honor was a staple on your show and still is, apparently, thankfully.
Yes.
It's an apparel company that I started when I got back from Afghanistan. We're a silkscreen and apparel company, and we have an online e-commerce store. We started with a single mission of hiring homeless and at-risk veterans. A lot of veterans who may have joined out of high school, went straight into the military, might not have had the social and economic background that they would need to climb that economic ladder and the corporate ladder. And so you saw a lot of them over the last 20 years really struggle. And so I wanted to make sure that anybody who wore the uniform, especially those most vulnerable, did not fall through the cracks. And that's why we started Rags of Honor. We subsequently, my wife started with Brandon Marty, a Navy veteran roasters, Cup of Joe, same mission. We had 9 full-time veterans working over where we roast our own coffee, pay a living wage. And on top of all that, we have the nonprofit Rags of Honor 1, which we raise money for. There are no salaries associated with it. We raise $100,000. We give $100,000 away to veterans to help smooth that transition from homelessness to your first job to a paycheck to an apartment. And it covers everything from writing a security deposit to getting a bed to kitchenware, to just make that transition as seamless as possible. And we are the only group that I know of that actively funds a procedure called a stellate ganglion block that helps to cure PTS. It has an 88% effective rate. It is an outpatient procedure that costs about $1,500. We have paid for over 20 of these in the last year. And it's just a commitment we make to help those who are struggling get a job, keep a job, but also deal with the demons that may have come during their service.
Yeah, and it's literally life-changing, right? This pharmaceutical discovery?
Yeah, it is absolutely life-changing. Essentially, it is, for lack of a better term, it's like a nerve block. The ganglion cluster of nerves runs down the cervical spine, and it contains your fight or flight responses, and it is overactive when you've seen a lot of trauma. And what this procedure does is the doctor targets the nerve complex and essentially deadens the nerve. I mean, I'm boiling it down to a very common denominator. Deadens that nerve so that the response, that the memory is still there, but the response to it is not heightened, right? So you remember what happened, but you don't have that visceral response. And we have seen people that work for us who were literally suicidal. I have a young man who worked for me who attempted suicide 3 times, who he is back at work full time. Tamika, the list could go on of the people who have literally been at their last wit's end, and they wake up and come out of it and they're back at work 2 days later. It's really almost a miracle when I've seen it work.
And it's amazing work that you guys continue to do. Thank you to your lovely wife for letting you come out and play today on live from my office. But in all seriousness, buddy, I couldn't be more proud of you and the work you continue to do. And I don't care what party people affiliate with, Republican, Democrat, Independent, Tupperware, whatever your party is. Tupperware. Boy, there's a joke for old guys, huh? Whatever.
I got it. I'm going to use that one. I'm going to steal that joke. I want you to know.
Please feel free.
That is funny.
But I'm proud of you and all the things you do. And let's continue to get this work done. And please, please, please join the almost 40 million who have already voted. And vote in person, vote by mail, vote early.
Yes.
Just get out and vote. Thank you, Mark Doyle.
Have to vote. All right. Have a great day, Steve. I'll see you soon.
Thanks to Senator Dick Durbin and also to the great Mark Doyle for being on Live from My Office. Before we go, we always mention a charity, a charitable cause you may want to consider supporting. And since this is so much a political episode, and they will be in the coming days, let me mention this one. It's the Beau Biden Foundation. The Beau Biden Foundation is designed and efforted specifically to keep kids safe from child abuse, domestic abuse, things of that nature. Abuse, neglect, and bullying is really the umbrella. Check it out. The website is Beau, B-E-A-U, BeauBidenFoundation.org. I think it is worthy of your support. Well, once again, it's truly a delight that Donald Trump joins us on the phone. Mr. President, good morning to you. And before we get started, the Chinese bank account, is that you balance that checkbook? How does that work?
Yeah, no, it's a great checking account. It's very small, like many things in China. It's a small checking account, but it's interest-free. Interest-free Shanghai checking.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
Do you get any sort of premium when you sign up?
I think you get... don't you get like a paperweight or something for your desk? Yeah, I think that's what it was.
I'm being told you got 3 hookers. Is that accurate?
You know what? I don't know where you got that information. That sounds very fake.
It looks like in the pamphlet I have here from that Chinese bank, you can either get the paperweight, the toaster, or 3 hookers.
No, that's the Bank of Cyrus. The Bank of Cyrus gives you the hookers.
Well,
Cyprus, not Cyrus.
How are you, sir?
Freudian slip.
I understand.
Hey, I'm great. Did you hear the other great news? I was just officially endorsed by rapper 50 Cent, Cochran.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he said once he learned about Sleepy Joe's tax plan, he knew he was voting for me, because if Biden gets elected, he's going to become 25 cent. That's called rapper deflation.
Yeah.
It's also called a dad joke. You can use that.
Yeah, that's great. You must be
Half
very
his value
proud.
gone.
You must be very, very proud. And Ice Cube, is he on Team Trump? What's the story there?
I think Ice Cube, Ice-T, who else? I don't know. I think we have all the ices accounted for. Vanilla Ice. He's going to be my housing and urban development guy. He does all that home improvement stuff.
All right,
it's going to be great.
Now, we were talking about the former vice president a moment ago, and of course you bring him up every 3 seconds. You called Joe Biden a criminal. You've told supporters at your rallies that Joe and his son Hunter ought to be investigated by the FBI and locked up. Is that still your position?
Yep, still my position. That's exactly what I said. Lock up the Bidens, which, by the way, sounds like a great title for a hilarious new sitcom, doesn't it? Lock Up the Bidens, starring Sleepy Joe and High as a Kite Hunter Biden, with special guest star Kirstie Alley, also starring Scott Baio, and John Boyd as the prison warden. Actually, with all the Hunter Biden stuff, him snorting up his nose, he could probably get on that show, Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Now, good, sir. Very good.
You like that one? You see what I did there?
Yeah.
Look, the Bidens are truly an organized crime family. Actually, scratch that. They're more like a disorganized crime family, because half the time Sleepy Joe doesn't know where the hell he is. And who leaves laptop computers lying around out in the open like that? So sloppy.
Even sloppy. With media that you swear is left-leaning and all the insults you throw out. Look, Kristen Welker is a very highly respected reporter. And I don't know, I'm analyzing the debate. Do you really think you beat the vice president?
Hands down. She didn't know what to do with me. She wasn't prepared. Now, Sleepy Joe, he's had some trouble. I won't lie to you. He has some horrible cognitive. I have great cognitive, by the way. Amazing cognitive. He has nothing going for him. In fact, his only family heirloom is male pattern baldness.
Is English
No offense, Scott.
Is English your second language? I'm just
No, that's Melania.
You said you're going to allow yourself to be tested for COVID-19 anytime going forward between now and Election Day. Is that still accurate?
What is this, the Cochrane's Coronavirus Inquisition podcast? Listen, I'm a very busy man, okay? I don't have time to keep track of all my COVID testing dates, all right? COVID testing.
Well, how annoying was it to have the debate commission mute your microphone, with the 2-minute rule that they had? Is that something that we can count on if you win again, that we could occasionally just mute your microphone?
I don't really understand the need for them to cut the microphone. It was very unfair. It was very lame kindergarten debate rules. I mean, you'd never catch them doing that to Obama, okay?
Well, just so Vice President Biden wouldn't get screamed at by you, and you still.
I didn't cut him off. Okay, we played it fair and square.
Listen,
I did not interrupt him, Cochrane. But you know that. You watched it.
Yes, I understand.
You watched it.
But aren't you concerned?
Look, you know what? That's okay. Let's not talk about interrupting anymore. Because if they think they're going to rig this against me and throw me off my game, okay, like they tried to last night, they've got another thing coming. My strategy is simple. Every time I get a mic, being cut when I'm on a stage somewhere, anytime they cut it, I'm going to hold up a different huge picture of Hunter Biden snorting coke up a hooker's rear end in a Ukrainian brothel. That will settle anything, believe me.
You are a classy guy. President Trump, what's your reaction to former President Obama campaigning for Biden now?
Oh, now that's cute. What a great strategy. Let the smooth-talking, charismatic guy in his 50s go out there and remind all the sad liberals who they aren't going to be getting for the next 4 years. I'm sure Obama's speech, I haven't heard it because I don't watch fake news, but it's probably very moving, of bowels, moving of bowels.
I got it. It's nice of you to bring it back, though, and try to make sure I heard the punchline.
Just want to make sure you heard the joke.
Listen, Mr. President, if Joe Biden's elected, he's not going to cancel Christmas. Where's that from?
Yes, he will. And as soon as he shuts down Christmas, he's not going to stop there. He's going to get rid of your Kiwanis Day Club, too.
It's called Kwanzaa, my liege.
That's what I said, Mike. Quit interrupting. Jeez, again with the interrupting. And if that wasn't bad enough, Kamala Harris wants to get rid of Thanksgiving. Did you hear this?
No.
This is rich. And all because our great patriotic pilgrims chose to have dinner with the Tonto Indians and not hers, which are the tech support ones. Nothing against them, though. They helped me delete all my cookies off the Oval Office computer.
Wait, the other day you said Joe Biden will listen to the scientists like that's a bad thing. How's that a bad thing?
Look, you're reading between the lines. There's nothing wrong with listening to the scientists, okay? I didn't say that, but seriously, who are you going to trust? Your commander-in-chief, who's a brave and tough guy, who has a lot of worldly experience, or a bunch of middle-aged paranoid virgins who dream of one day going out on a date with a girl and dry humping her through their lab coat? I think I've made my point.
Did I mention how classy you are, sir? Listen, we heard all week long you walked out on the 60 Minutes interview with Leslie Stahl, and then you said you were very upset that she wasn't wearing a mask in the White House.
Yeah, that was classy, huh? I was extremely upset. I mean, it had nothing to do with the corona. I had to stare at her face for 45 minutes. Have you seen her?
Oh, God.
She has that perfectly natural sandblasted skin and a neck that looks like a very unhealthy iguana, if you ask me. When the Secret Service told me an old senile woman was walking around the White House without a mask on, I thought for a second it was Nancy Pelosi trying to scare us into signing the stimulus.
Quickly, sir, your lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, secretly filmed in the new Borat movie. He's a piece of work. Appeared to be playing, his own fiddle. He appeared to be touching himself, sir, while the actress playing Borat's daughter was with him. Have you talked to him?
That's your interpretation. No, I did not talk to him, but I will tell you, that was a total setup. I mean, let's be honest. A total hit job. Rudy wasn't doing anything inappropriate at all, okay? He was a perfect gentleman. And, being Italian, he was just taking a moment to adjust his gabagool and mozzarellas. All right, that's it. That's it. He was over 21 years old, too, by the way.
Finally, sir, not at all related to Rudy. You have any comment on this guy, Jeffrey Toobin? This is the CNN legal analyst, the guy from the New Yorker, suspended, maybe fired. We'll find out. After allegedly, well, not allegedly, he's admitted he was masturbating on a Zoom call with coworkers.
You know what the saddest part is? They said he was allegedly pleasuring himself. That's what I heard. I mean, that's when you know his junk is really small, when they can't even tell for sure, okay? And frankly, I'm not surprised to find out that fake news CNN has perverts working there. Are you? I mean, including good old Jeffrey Durbin, okay?
Right. Listen, sir, you and the nicknames, maybe put a stop to that. That might help all of us.
Steve Corona Cochran.
That's not one you want to tackle.
I'll think of one. You, next time, I'm going to have one for you.
You know what? Call the people I went to 5th grade with. They may have one for you.
They got plenty.
We're past the point of no return, so I'm going to say this. Goodbye, Mr. President.
Later, loser.
And thanks to President Trump for checking in against my will one more time. Ross Cochran produces, engineers, and takes care of everything I forget for Live from My Office. Thank you, Ross. And the musical director, as always, is John DeCoste, who will take us home with this closing song. It seems appropriate because this is what we normally close with. I'll see you next time on Live from My Office.
30 years plus on the airwaves, you have turned your dial to me. Now you're tuned into my podcast. It's Live from My Office, Steve. From Ithaca, New York to Carolina South, W. Cochran, Steve. From Minneapolis and then Chicago twice, top-rated shows achieved. Sit back, relax, and now listen to my show. When or wherever you are, 'cause you're on the go. A-list celebs with some laughs and great info. Live from my office, the Steve Cochran Podcast Show. Yeah. No better place to be. Yeah. Subscribe and like for free. Yeah. Live from my office, Steve. So glad you're with me. It's Live from my office, Steve.
Thank you for listening to Live from My Office, a service of Monkey Run Productions. All rights reserved. The podcast is hosted by Steve Cochran, and it's mixed, edited, and produced by me, Ross Cochran. Support the show by subscribing wherever you're listening and by telling your friends about it. Follow Steve on all social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And make sure you check out this episode's show notes for relevant information discussed during the conversations. You can also email the show directly at thecochranshow@gmail.com with any questions or comments. And that's the best place to tell us about your favorite nonprofit so we can make sure we mention them on the next episode. Steve is available for corporate speaking gigs. He would love to MC your event. And occasionally, he's funny. Thank you for listening. Head to cochranshow.com for more.